Maxwell Show. You can follow us on Facebook at Jordan Maxwell Show and follow us on Twitter at J Maxwell Show for any messages. You can always find the latest shows on our website, but if you want to make sure you don't miss a show, you can subscribe to the Jordan Maxwell Show on iTunes. So please support the show at no cost to you by doing your online shopping at Amazon. Make sure you click through the Amazon link on our homepage.
Hey, and welcome back to the Jordan Maxwell Show. Tonight we're going to be speaking about law.
Again. Yeah, we've been talking about it a little bit, and I didn't even want to get into this subject at all, but it is interesting, and it is an idea whose time has come to talk about how the law works.
Well, Jordan, in that regard, this country, the people by default did become sovereigns, and there is a maximum of law that does say a nobleman should know their law in full. Well, a sovereign's above a nobleman. So, if you want to be a free people and you want to be sovereign, per Lansing v. Smith, that maximum of law does kind of say, well, if you think you're something special, you should know the law in full so you can protect your rights, because you're going to be involved with things of consequence.
That's what I have found. I have discovered. I understood certain concepts long time ago about the difference between a federal and state citizen and all of that. But what I didn't understand at that time, and still don't fully understand, but I got a better grasp of it now, is that when you declare yourself to be a state citizen, or you say that you have some kind of a special standing that other people don't, you have better know what the hell you're talking about. And you better do your homework, because I'm telling you, most of the time, you're wrong. You've already got adhesion contracts. You've already made certain contractual agreements with government a long time ago that you have forgotten about and you didn't know about.
Like when you were born and you have a birth certificate.
Well, that goes into Mercier's invisible contracts.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. So if you want to talk about you are sovereign and you have sovereign rights, no, you're not sovereign. And so you better go back and do your homework, because you don't have what you think you do. And you may be looking for serious trouble. And that trouble could have been averted if you just understood what you were talking about. And so many people today talking about this subject, including myself, I'm totally guilty of that myself, as I'm fascinated by the concepts and the ideas. 30 years ago I heard these ideas, and I wanted to tell people about them, but I didn't really understand. I wasn't really knowledgeable on it. I just heard different people. And so I was telling, on radio and talking about these subjects, but I really didn't get it. I really didn't understand, and I still don't today. But I do know that if you're going to state to government and to the people around you that you have some special privilege and that you're something special, then you had better do your homework, because you will be doing things which are against the law, and you can go to jail for it. But I have noticed, and it's been the same. We were talking off the air, and we'll talk about it on the air, about the Internal Revenue Service. Every time I have personally dealt with the Internal Revenue, they have always been polite and decent with me, and never coercive or challenging. They've always been very polite. And so, I don't care whether it's right or wrong, or whether it's a good or bad system. It doesn't matter. They're just people doing a job. That's all they are. They're just people doing a job. But they have always been polite and courteous. And
they're just, as you said, they're there to do a job. And the taxes in the U.S. are considerably a lot less than other parts of the world. And what most people don't realize, one of the best tax havens in the world, it's the United States.
What does that tell you?
And people are chomping at the bit to get here.
Yeah.
I've lived in several different countries. And I got to tell you, Los Estados Unidos, numero uno. It's the best.
Yeah, I know. But we want to keep it the best. And the way you keep something high and high rated is to keep it high. And the way you keep America great is to understand how it works, understand what America is and how it works and what the laws are. And this is something I know there's no doubt in my mind that 99% of the people in America have no idea in the world how anything really works. You have people, even in banking, who are investors in investment companies. All they know is what they know and then doing their little job of the stock market and investing, but they don't understand how the world system works. They don't understand what the government, what's the difference between a state government, federal government, between corporations. Most people have no idea about any of this, and that's why we have nothing but trouble, nothing but problems.
Yeah, and I agree with you on the IRS. I've dealt with them in the past and had them hours and hours on the phones with correcting this or correcting that. They've always been polite, courteous.
Yeah, I've never had one of them be discourteous or unkind at all.
Yep.
They're very understanding, and they're just trying to explain to you, well, here's what the law says, and here's what this is, we're just doing a job. We don't personally know you. We're just telling you what the law says. And so I can't argue with that. And if you're a U.S. citizen, well, then you get certain privileges as a U.S. citizen.
Your taxes are a form of excise tax for your corporate privileges as a U.S. citizens. They are corporations. Proof of that being in California, U.S. citizens pay their taxes to the franchise tax board.
Franchise.
And you have two very important benefits. You're using funny money. You will not be put in jail in debtor's prison. And that's a form of limited liability, which is the whole purpose of incorporating something, is to enjoy the privilege of limited liability.
Limited
liability. Yeah. See, under limited liability, if you rape someone, they might put you in a prison cell. Under the common law, they might take you behind the court after the jury finds you guilty and hang you.
Mm-hmm. That's common law.
That's strict liability.
That's right. Strict liability and limited liability.
Versus limited liability. So U.S. citizens with the income tax, it's a form of excise tax. You're paying for that corporate privilege.
Yeah, and that makes sense once you begin to see how government works.
Well, that's probably how the U.S. prosecutors see it when people don't want to pay their taxes. You're enjoying the benefits. Why should you not shoulder the burdens?
Well, and I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, if you're enjoying the benefits of the corporation and the system as it's now set up, and you're enjoying it, you're driving a nice car, you're driving a brand new car, and you're
regulated by reasonable rules of the road in the form of statutes.
Yeah, of course.
That's not to say there's not some corruption with traffic tickets being a source of revenue.
Yeah, well, but that's what it is. But all of this is all part of law. So if you think that something is unlawful, if you think that something is oppressive and shouldn't be, well, then fine. Go home, go do the homework. Go into court and fight it.
One of the things I think we can get into on citations, most people don't realize a citation is just a notice to appear. Precisely. And technically, a notice to appear, you're appearing in front of the judge. And under the law, you're entitled to a formal written complaint that needs to be signed by the district attorney if it's an infraction of $10 or more. And I've gotten off of several speeding tickets that way.
Even more precisely, to even pull you over, that's a form of arrest because your forward motion's been impeded. So there should actually even be an arrest warrant. But then again, there's U.S. citizens who don't really...
Hey, look up Overton versus Ohio. Very good case where some people were pulled over for a expired tag. There was some racial profiling in the case. Supreme Court says, hey, officer, you had no right to pull these people over. Great case, Supreme Court.
Yeah, that would be probably under probable cause. Was the stop justified in the first place?
Yep. But the citation, that's an interesting case. Take a look at it. It is a notice to appear. And a lot of people just get charged with the offense under default. Under the laws, they have a certain time frame to respond.
They don't want to deal with challenging anything. They just want to pay the ticket and get it over.
Yeah, and the courts, at least in California, they pull you in and they throw in a pro tempore judge, which isn't even a judge, and they have you sign off that you agree to this lawyer in a robe relinquishing your rights, and they enter a plea for you.
What is a pro tempore? Explain
that. Well, in the court system, at least in California, I haven't experienced this in other states, in the civil matter for traffic and violations like that, they'll throw you into a round up the cattle with their tickets, and everybody comes in there wanting to challenge it, and they ask you to sign off. And the first thing I've learned from the law is I'm not going to allow a pro tempore, which is basically just a lawyer dressed as a robe, acting as a judge. I want an elected judge who's been trained, who's been elected by the people to hear my case. And then technically you have rights to a trial by jury if you feel that you're entitled to that. So you let members of your peers determine the outcome of your offense.
And there's a distinction between trial by jury and jury trial.
That's right, boy. There's a big distinction between jury trial and trial by jury. Doesn't mean the same thing at all.
See, a jury trial under the common law, the jury has powers of jury nullification. Trial by jury, that judge tell you, you just decide on the facts. I'll decide the law.
Yeah.
That's a trial by jury. That's not a jury trial.
Right.
Jury trial, the jury can say, we don't like these laws. This guy's home free.
Yeah.
This law's crap.
Yeah.
But see, trial by jury, the judge is not going to instruct you that way. I'll rule on the law. You decide on the facts.
So there it is. That's a classic example of what I'm talking about. There's a world of difference between a trial by jury or a jury trial. It's the difference between a lawyer who practices in law and an attorney as a practicing at law. In law, at law. What are you talking about? There's a difference? Yeah, well, when you get married, you got in-laws. Or if you're going to court, you're going to be at law. So you need to understand how these words work in a court.
Oh, absolutely. And even in California, most people don't realize under Penal Code 853, citations are a violation of a county or city ordinance, and they were repealed. This is back in 1967 under Chapter 815. So citations technically are no longer in effect in California, yet they're given out every day.
So in other words, when a cop gives you a ticket, is that what you're talking about?
Google it. Look it up. Go to Lexington Law or one of the different search engines and Google citations in California Penal Code 853. They were repealed in 1967.
So what are you saying?
They're technically, the law said citations are no longer allowed, but they give them out every day. And we'll go into that with our legal experts on some of these shows.
Well, that's a classic example of what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Well, that gets into that maxim, a reasonable custom is to be obeyed like law.
Yeah, say that again because that's
a maxim of law, a reasonable custom is to be obeyed like law.
That is so very important. I want you to say it again, but I want to preface it. This is a very, very important concept in maxim of law. A concept behind law. Say it again, but this time I want people to listen. This is a very important idea that you just expressed.
I'm paraphrasing the maxim because I don't know if my memory's perfect on this, but it basically says a reasonable custom is to be obeyed like law.
That is in fact true. That's exactly what goes on in the world today.
Well, if you go into court, which is a Nisi Prius court, and you're going in there as a state citizen, they're going to move against you as if you were a U.S. citizen for all kinds of technical reasons. And that being said, and they're also going to be thinking, this person's being completely unreasonable because nobody's living on plantations anymore, taking their surplus goods to the market on Wednesday to trade, and they have a bunch of slaves working on their plantation. This is the 21st century here, pal. You're being very unreasonable talking about these things. There's a type of status that George Washington had. They're not going to say that to you overtly, but that's probably what they're going to be thinking. And they're probably going to be thinking in some fashion about that maximum. A reasonable custom is to be obeyed like law. And you're coming in here being highly unreasonable. We got an expedited process here. You're talking about all this common law stuff and this and that. You're gumming up the works, buddy.
Yeah. But a reasonable
custom is to be obeyed like law.
Okay. I'm telling you, that is, to me, one of the most important statements I've ever heard, because that's exactly how the world works. That Roman maxim of law is because people, people, generally speaking, understand that certain things are against the law, and you ask anybody on the street, well, can you do this? No, that's against the law. Ask anybody, and people will tell you, no, you can't do that. It's against the law. Then you, like Sharon, you go to a law library and get the law book and open it up and do some research for about 6 hours, and you finally find it and read the law, and you find out, no, that's not the law. That's not the law at all. It's totally different. You can do this certain thing that everybody in town will tell you you can't do. And so, therefore, what this maxim of law you just quoted a couple of times is saying that it's a custom of the people to believe that this is that you can't do it. So, therefore, don't do it, even if it's not the law. But if it's a reasonable custom, and people all over the city and all over the county and all over the state, everybody just knows that you can't do this and you can't do that. We know that. In point of fact, you can. The law says you can. But it is accepted by everybody that you can't, so therefore you can't do it.
But that gets into what the judges said about the public. Taken in by first impressions, don't think very deeply, ignorant, ill-informed.
No, that's exactly what it was actually written in the law book, in Black's Law Dictionary. It said something to that effect.
Well, one of the things most people also don't realize is under the Sixth Amendment, there's a statute of limitations. And a lot of people, under 60 days for felony, 30 days for misdemeanors, and a lot of people waive that right. Well, you know what, Mr. Prosecutor? You want to charge me with this offense? You've got 30 days or you've got 60 days to charge me with this offense, and I'm entitled to a right to a speedy trial. And most people don't realize when they hire the attorney, they waive their rights. You're screwed right there on the spot, the second you sign up.
U.S. citizens have no access to the Bill of Rights. If you could, look up Jones v. Temer, Google Scholar, and then just maybe do a find in the browser on Bill of Rights, and they will explain in Jones v. Temer, U.S. citizens do not have access to the Bill of Rights.
U.S. citizens do not have access to the Bill of Rights.
Per Jones v. Temer, a 1993 court case.
Right. So don't go telling the police or the judge, well, I have the Bill of Rights protects me. You don't have access to the Bill of Rights.
Have very similar privileges under Title 42, which is the United States Code.
But you don't have access to the Bill of Rights.
No. And that gets that gets into the gun issue.
Yeah, that's a big hotspot these days under federal statute versus states.
Talking Second Amendment guarantees the right to keep and bear arms. U.S. citizens have no access to the Second Amendment. Per Jones v. Temer, 1993, anyone in the audience can go to Google Scholar and look that up, and then just do a find in your browser under Bill of Rights. And they'll talk about that. It will say that in 2 or 3 sentences. And then it says you only have the rights that are peculiar to federal citizenship, not state citizenship.
All right. So, well, I'm just saying that a U.S. citizen means that you are a franchisee of a corporation.
A foreign corporation.
District
of Columbia, State of New Columbia, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it's New Columbia or State of Columbia, or what we call Washington, D.C. And if you are a U.S. citizen, that means that you are an employee or a franchisee of that corporation, which is called the United States Corporation.
Like McDonald's or Burger King.
Exactly. And therefore, since you are working for, and to make this simple, it's like going to work for Sears. When you go to work for Sears at 8 o'clock in the morning, once you are on inside of Sears as an employee, you do not have rights that you have out here in the street tonight when you go home.
Precisely.
Because while you're in here, we're paying you, and you work for us, and we own you. You don't like that, you can leave. But if you're going to stay here, I'm the boss, not you. And I will tell you when you can go to lunch, when you can come back, what your job is, and you had better do the job that I'm telling you. Because if not, I'm going to give you the papers, and you're out of here, and you're gone. So now you don't have any privileges.
You will no longer enjoy the benefits of employment at Sears.
That's right. Simple. And so if you were working at Sears, and I say something to you, you don't like it, and you say, well, I have constitutional rights, or I have the...
No, you sign an employment contract.
That's right. You sign an employment contract that says, I'm the boss, and you work for me. Right. As long as you understand that, you're going to get along just fine, because in here, under the contract you sign, I am the boss for 8 hours, and what I say is the boss. And therefore, you don't have any access to any rights that you have out on the street. Wait till you leave here at 5 o'clock and you're out in the street. Now you can talk about whatever rights you think you have.
Drop your pants right now and give me a urine sample.
Yeah. But when you're in here, you don't have the rights. I have the right. I'm your employer. I'm the boss. I'm trying to make this point that if you're a U.S. citizen, you do not have access to the Constitution or the Bill of Rights, period.
Right. You're under the jurisdiction of the 14th Amendment. There's two constitutions. There's the Constitution for the states united on the American continent. That's everything prior to the 14th Amendment. And then everything from the 14th Amendment onward is the Constitution of the United States.
That's it. Constitution of the United States.
Which is a foreign corporation
Which
in
is a
relation
foreign
to the
corporation.
countries called states.
Right. So there's two constitutions. The Constitution of
Embedded in
America.
one document.
Yeah.
Embedded in one document.
That's interesting that there are two constitutions. One's for the United States.
You're holding one piece of paper.
Yeah.
But there's the Constitution for the states united on the American continent, 1787. And then there's the Constitution of the United States, 1868.
Corporation.
Foreign corporation in relation to the states.
So there are two different constitutions.
Operating in the territorial maritime jurisdiction of that United States.
Yeah. So this is what people don't understand. When you talk about United States is a corporation. The states united on the property, on the land, is called the Republic. It's called the United States of America, but then there's a United States. That's why Obama is not the president of
the states united on the American continent. There was one time where the president could not enter the states. He was not authorized to do that. They would throw rocks at him. So then they created the Marine Corps to protect the president.
Yeah, that's what it was called. And that's why it was under maritime law. And that's why we get the word merchant marines. They were on the sea, the merchant marines. Marine has to do with the sea.
And this is addressed in the United States Code 1746. It talks about when you take an oath. If you take an oath without the United States, then you swear on the penalty of perjury under the laws of the United States of America, because now you're without the United States. If you're within the United States, you swear under penalty of perjury. It's Section 1746, oaths. And I do not believe that's changed. But anybody can verify that right on the internet right now.
So the bottom line is, there's a world of difference between the United States and the United States of America. Totally different. One's a corporation and one's a big idea. It goes back. And this is why I've said that, go back and watch all those old cowboy movies. That's a classic example. Go back and watch the old John Wayne and the old shoot-'em-up cowboy movies from many years ago, Roy Rogers, Gene Autry, and all the old cowboy movies. The cowboys ride into town. They got the guns on the hips. They go in the bar and have a few drinks.
And they hold court right there and shoot each other when it's time to render judgment.
That's right. So if they have a disagreement, the two guys can walk out in the street like the movie High Noon.
Because they're sovereigns.
That's right.
And a sovereign's always attended by his court. A sovereign can have court in a toilet if he wants to. As long as there's a sovereign there has to be a court. So these were two sovereigns, and they held court, and now they're going to execute judgment. Somebody's dying. Somebody's walking away, and someone's going in the dirt.
Well, that's true. But that's the way the country was founded.
That's the way feudal Europe worked.
That's right.
Each king would exercise their rights, and people would die. You trespassed on my rights, therefore we shall have a war. Now, the subjects were subjugated. They didn't have any rights.
That's right. That's why even today in England, the British people are called subjects. Why? Because they're in subjection
to a sovereign.
To a sovereign. They're in subjection. And that was the difference in America. We said we're not going to be in subjection.
That's what I'm not so sure about, George.
Yeah,
I don't know if anybody was that smart to realize that it was just like things were so crazy in the Wild Wild West. There was no sovereign for the king's butt we just kicked. There was nowhere for the sovereignty to go, so by default, operation of law had to go somewhere, so it went to the people. And then the people behind the United States Constitution, when Patrick Henry said, "I smell a rat," was probably thinking, we got a problem here. We got a bunch of damn immigrants from Europe who were peasants before. Now they're sovereign. This is a problem.
Yeah.
You mean a peasant's going to have a allodial title to his land?
Allodial.
What?
Yeah, look that word up. Allodial title. Allodial. Allodial title. Exactly. Oh, yeah, that's a hell of a subject. Look
You
that
have
one up.
own all the mineral rights, everything from the core of the earth to heaven above. It's all yours. It's your dominion.
Yeah, a allodial title means when you buy a piece of property and you get it under a allodial title.
There is no feudal overlord whatsoever. It is land. It is not real estate. This is another principle in law. A fiction can only tax a fiction. A fiction cannot tax substance. And land cannot be taxed. Now, you could see how for the banking industry that could be a problem when mortgages apply. Now, real estate's a different story. That's a legal fiction. You know, real estate can be parceled up, taxed.
Yeah,
Property tax.
Right, that's just a state, but that's just your estate. But that's not the land.
That's not land.
That's right.
Land is substance,
That's
and a
right.
fiction cannot tax substance. So I'm only aware of one country in Europe that allowed some of the people to hold land allodially, and that was Poland. The Polish nobles could hold their land allodially, but they elected their king. But in England, the Queen's holding everything in the Commonwealth allodially. She's the only allodial landholder.
Allodial.
That's it. Or the monarchy. Let's not say the Queen. Let's say the monarchy.
Yeah. And so allodial title to
Means
land.
you have no overlord whatsoever. It's between you and God.
Yeah.
That's where the church comes in. Now you've got someone who's sovereign. They own their land outright. Well, you need someone to regulate this guy's conscience. He can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, he's got his own gun, his own shotgun. Remember in the old cowboy
Grows
movie?
his own food. Got his
Yeah.
own minerals. He can pull his own minerals out of the earth. Pull gold and silver out of the earth.
Yeah, he's got his own water out there, pumps water up, so he doesn't need your water, he doesn't need your food, he doesn't need anything. And besides, the guy's got guns out there on the property, and
That's his dominion. Yeah, he can protect it.
that's right.
He has no feudal overlord. So
Well,
he is.
remember in the old cowboy movies, how many times I've seen the old Roy Rogers and the cowboy movies when I was a kid, when the sheriff would come out on a guy's property looking to ask the guy something, and the guy would come out with a shotgun in the movie and say to the sheriff, "That's far enough, sheriff. Don't come any closer to my property. What are you out here for?
Exactly.
What are you out here on my property for?" And the sheriff would say, "No, I'm just coming out to ask you a question. Just wanted to talk to you." And he said, "Well, then you back off my property, and I'll come out and talk to you. But you are on my property here. You have no right to be on my property." Well, that was in America. That's in the old cowboy Western movies. That's the way America operated. But today, no, you don't own property allodial.
No, you can't have that old lady in Beverly Hillbillies sitting on a tremendous amount of resources. That's not in corporate America's benefit.
You got that right. But we're going to have to do
she's
something
just
about that.
sitting there, and she's just crocheting and knitting on a rocking chair on the porch, and there's billions of dollars worth of minerals there.
Or that
And she's
property
holding
alone.
She's
Yeah.
holding that property allodially,
Yeah, and allodial means nobody can touch it. Period.
except for her descendants. That's the right of inheritance. It goes to, and you want that land, kill them all. As long as there's someone there in her bloodline, that's who it's gone to.
Yeah, well, that's called allodial title. And I know, because I've seen it done, you can buy a new car, allodial title. I've seen it done. I was there when it was done. And I went...
Well, strictly speaking, U.S. citizens can't hold anything allodially. Nothing. They have an equitable interest in their property because
That's
they're
right.
in some
That's
type
right.
of. They're getting government benefits, and when you start talking about benefits, you're talking about beneficiaries. Well, trust structures have beneficiaries. That means there's a trustee, a beneficiary. So if you and I, Jordan, if I basically want you to hold something in trust for me, I say. I've got this 3-year-old kid and I want to give you a guitar. You be the trustee and I allow you to have title over that. Okay? Well, the beneficiary of that trust still has an equitable interest in that property, even though you're holding it. He's still a beneficiary of that trust. He has an equitable interest in it, even though I granted you ownership of it. See?
Yeah, so this is why today...
So he's benefiting from the trust, from your protection of the corpus of the trust.
Yeah,
but the
right.
point being is there's a benefit. So when you hear the word benefit and beneficiary, there's a beneficiary, which means there's some type of trust structure. So strictly speaking, U.S. citizens, I'm of the opinion that they hold nothing allodially. Their teeth,
I
their
don't think
hairpiece,
nothing.
their car, nothing. They have an equitable interest in it. They don't they don't hold it allodially. Not
That's
U.S. citizens. Now, state citizen, that's something different. We're in the realm of substance. We're in the realm of common law.
Yeah. But state citizens in the realm of common law, that's a whole different story. But if you're a U.S. citizen, you cannot hold anything allodially, from what I understand, because allodial means nobody, including God, can touch it. No one.
You signed it all over to someone to take care of it.
That's right.
Probably under the doctrine of parens patria.
So therefore, government, you cannot own anything allodial if you are a U.S. citizen. Because that's like going to work for Sears and you can call your own shot and you can do anything you want and they can't touch you. No, that's not the way it worked in here. I can fire you anytime I want. No, I'm allodial. You can't touch me. I can do anything I please.
No. You're an employee. See, I'm an employer. You're an employee. Go look that up in the dictionary. That's a master-servant relation. That means you're on an at-will, day-to-day basis. And your labor, you didn't generate any equity in this company, pal.
That's right.
That's it. You get the benefit of a paycheck, and that's all. And then when when the human resources is no longer necessary, we shall liquidate you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because, you brought that point up one time before in a discussion about if somebody comes into your company and is helping you to build a car and they're putting their expertise into it.
Oh, yeah. If you come in as a state citizen, and now you're working you're not, strictly speaking, you're probably not going to be an employee. You're going to be, your labor is going to go into building that company. You might have a stake in that company where you have some type of claim in the equity of that company. Like, you can't just fire me. I will see you in a common law court and take out my share of how much I helped build this organization. This wasn't an employer-employee relationship. This wasn't master-servant.
That's right. So,
strictly speaking, you're a corporation. I'm a sovereign. I'm above a corporation. I'm substance. You're a legal fiction. So you think you're just going to fire me? I'm going to walk away with nothing?
See, that's why I think, as I've said in all the other programs, a knowledge of the law is very important. You need to understand how this stuff works, because something is a legal fiction as opposed to substance. Well, when you get into a court, you better know what you're talking about.
That corporation would be a resident of the state. You would be, as a state citizen, domiciled here. There's a world of difference. Yeah. Ambassadors from the United States reside in a foreign country because they're coming back to headquarters.
Yeah.
That's not their domicile. They're residing there.
So if you say
that's why when you file a tax return, it's a resident income tax return. Because your home base is Washington, D.C., and you're residing in California.
And that's why the collection agency is called the Internal Revenue System.
Precisely.
It is operating only for U.S. citizens
internally
in the corporation. So if you're a member of the corporation, you're a U.S. citizen, which means you're an employee or a franchisee of a foreign corporation. So the corporation has its own in-house auditing department for its own employees. It's called the Internal Revenue System.
And internal revenue, revenue.
Revenue.
You've got a corporate jurisdiction, a private jurisdiction, a public jurisdiction.
So
you've got different venues: a public venue, private venue, corporate venue. So revenue.
To revenue, yeah. But that's why, you hear Americans talking about, those terrible taxes system and how...
No, they can tax you at 100%, which means you're dead. Yeah. 100% tax. If I tax you at 100%, I put a bullet in your head, I take all your property. You can't defend it. I've just taken everything you had. That's 100% taxation. You're dead. You're no longer in my way.
Yeah.
Power to tax is the power to destroy.
Well, I mean, that's the law.
That's what the mob does. You didn't pay your debts. We're going to tax you at 100% now. Boom.
Look what just happened in France. If you make more than $1 million, it's 75% tax rate. And most people don't realize, look what happened in England back in the 70s. There was, I think, a 90% tax rate for people earning...
the Beatles weren't happy about that.
No, or Mick Jagger or any of them. Exactly.
That's why they're recording Exile on Main Street in southern France.
So it's very interesting, internal revenue. It's for only those who are called U.S. citizens, because a U.S. citizen is an employee or a franchisee of a company called the United States Corporation. And if you are working for that corporation, then you are internally, you are inside that corporation, so that you are under the auspices and under the authority of an internal.
You're
revenues.
within the United States. If you were without the United States, you would be in the
if you were a
States
state
United.
citizen.
You would be in the States United on the American continent, also referred to in section 1746 as under the laws of the United States of America. That's when you're without the United States.
Meaning you're not in the corporation.
Right.
You are a state citizen.
Yeah.
And there is such a thing as a state citizen as opposed to a corporate citizen.
Per
U.S.
Jones v. Temer 1993 court case.
So before we leave this program, I'll say it one more time. A U.S. citizen is an employee or a franchisee of a company.
A foreign corporation in relation to the states.
That's exactly what the law says. Therefore, as a U.S. citizen, you do not have access to the Bill of Rights or to many things that a sovereign American in 1776.
Because they're discussing in the Bill of Rights, there's reference to the common law.
Right.
Just by definition, U.S. citizens don't have access to that. None.
So don't go into court and today in a court and tell the judge that you have certain rights and you have a constitutional right. You don't have those
He's
rights.
taking silent judicial notice of the fact this clown does not know what he's talking about.
Right. So that's why when you go into court, don't think that you have a right to this and you have a constitutional right. You don't have a constitutional right. You are an employee of a corporation called United States, and therefore you are subject to that regulations and rules under that corporation. You're not a state citizen.
You're subject to federal laws, and there are national laws, and there's federal laws. And you're subject to every federal law, not national, every federal law.
And the reason why is because you can drive a new car, you dress pretty well, you eat pretty well, you can take the family out to...
the United States government takes very good care of their franchisees. Very good care.
Yeah, you
have a lot of benefits.
You sure do. If you
Limited liability is a big one. You're not going to jail for your debts. There's a lot of people out there with a lot of credit card debt. Yeah. I don't see them going to debtor's prison.
That's right.
I'm like Jordan. I'm not the world's foremost expert on this. I'm not a lawyer, but this is what my logic tells me.
Yeah, I mean, if your house is burning down, you can call the fire department.
Exactly.
And if you get in a bad accident and your child is harmed or hurt, and you got to go to the hospital, you can go to the emergency hospital. So the U.S. corporation takes care of its
human
employees.
resources.
It's a human resource.
Exactly. Permanent revenue base.
And that's what a lot of people forget. It is the best place for care and things like that are out there. The services.
It's just a business. If the cow, if I own a farm, and my cow breaks his leg or something, I'm going to take care of it. I want to make sure he's fed, and he has water, and he has a place to play, and he has a yard, a stock yard. Well, that's what you have, a yard. And so, you take care of your cattle, you take care of your children, you take care of the ones you're responsible for.
And that's what I think we're going to get into with some of these other future episodes with the law, where people can figure out if there's been some wrongdoing, and this might be some corrupt local individual.
Yep.
We've got a way to do it.
And one quick note. This is all being said, lest anyone think state citizenship is some type of silver bullet or panacea for any legal or tax problems they're having at this time.
You better go back and do your homework.
If it was only that simple. It's not that simple.
No, it is a very, very difficult and probably not something you want to do anyway, but it's something you should know about, that there is a difference between being a United States citizen, a corporate entity,
a legal fiction,
as opposed to a state citizen. There is such a thing as a state citizen and by law, but you better go back and do your homework, because as far as I'm concerned, you don't want to do it.
And your rights under state citizenship are different than your privileges under
bet on it.
U.S. citizenship.
You don't have all the privileges now. All the privileges you were having to do all the things that you normally do in your life, you can't do it anymore, because you're no longer in the company. You're no longer employed by Sears. You no longer can have all the accoutrements of that you had of employment. Because
you're in the realm of strict liability.
Period. Now you're on your own. And so you better go back and do your homework when you get into this subject. And I'm suggesting you don't want to do anything until you understand the law. The law is not what you think it is. And with that, we'll say goodbye and thank everybody for listening. There's a big difference between a U.S. citizen and a state citizen. There's a big difference between the California state and the state of California. There's a big difference in all of this, and you better wake up and find out that's why you get in trouble. Because ignorance of the law was no excuse. You need to understand the laws you live under. Jordan Maxwell, and we'll talk to you later. Good night.
And please support the show at no cost to you by doing your online shopping at Amazon. Make sure you click through the Amazon link on our homepage.
All right, thanks for listening, and join us next time.
See you next time.